Before the story begins, I'd like to ask you to subscribe and like. This will help the channel grow. The Last Train Before New Year, Winter Detective Story. The night train from Alder Ridge was never late. It left the mountains every December 30th, cutting through forests buried under snow, carrying holiday travelers, freight, and the quiet hum of routine. At 11:18 p.m. it vanished from the rail network. No explosion. No emergency signal. No wreckage. Detective Jonah Reed stood at the Frostline Control Center, staring at the blinking red dot frozen on the map. The train had stopped between stations, a dead zone of forest and frozen marshland where cell towers barely reached, and the snow-swallowed sound. Rail officials whispered about system failure. Jonah didn't buy it. Systems fail loudly. This one went silent. By the time the emergency crew reached the location at dawn, the engine was there. The first two cars too. Lights on. Doors unlocked. Empty. Passengers' luggage remained neatly stacked. Hot coffee cups had frozen mid-spill. A scarf lay draped over a seat as if its owner had stood up for a moment and never returned. But the last three cars were gone. Not derailed. Not destroyed. Uncoupled. Jonah walked along the tracks until he found the break point. Clean, deliberate. Someone had separated the train with precision during a snowstorm in total darkness. Then he saw it. A single footprint crossing the tracks. Heavy boots. Military tread. The snow around it disturbed by more than one person, but carefully brushed over afterward. This wasn't an accident. This was a disappearance on rails. And whatever had been taken mattered more than the people left behind. The official passenger manifest listed 42 names. Jonah found 45 suitcases. 3 didn't belong. They were identical, black, reinforced, unmarked. Too heavy for clothing. Too clean for holiday travel. Inside the lining of one, Jonah found frost-resistant insulation and a torn customs tag with a single word stamped in red ink: transfer. Railway security footage revealed more. At the last mountain stop before the blackout, 3 passengers boarded without tickets. Faces hidden beneath hoods. No interaction with others. They didn't sit. They waited. Jonah interviewed the conductor, hands still shaking from shock. "They didn't look like travelers," the man said. "They looked like escorts." When asked escorting whom, the conductor swallowed hard. "I thought it was freight." Jonah traced the train's cargo records. One sealed container had been rerouted last minute, listed as seasonal mechanical parts. No serial numbers. No inspection clearance. Someone had hidden something valuable among holiday chaos, and then removed it cleanly. The final clue came from a signal technician. For exactly 6 minutes, a false weather alert flooded the rail network. Heavy snow warnings that forced automated systems to pause tracking. 6 minutes was all it took. Whoever planned this knew the railway better than the railway knew itself. Jonah stepped outside into the falling snow, breath fogging the cold air. The missing cars weren't lost. They were delivered. By the third day, the snow should have erased everything. It didn't. Detective Mara Voss stood at the edge of the frozen rail yard, staring down at footprints that no storm had managed to bury. The pattern was wrong, too deliberate, too evenly spaced, as if someone had returned again and again, pacing the same ground, waiting. Snow doesn't remember accidents. It remembers intention. The victim's phone records led here. Short calls made after midnight. No voices caught. Just silence between rings, stretched too long to be random. Someone had been guiding him, pulling him forward into the cold. Inside one of the abandoned maintenance buildings, heat lingered faintly in the air. Recent. Illegal generators hummed somewhere deeper inside the structure. On a workbench lay maps of the city marked in red and blue grease pencil, power substations, emergency shelters, fuel depots, winter infrastructure. This wasn't just a murder scene. It was planning. Mara photographed everything. Every mark. Every cable. Every coffee cup still warm enough to fog the lens. The people behind this weren't desperate criminals. They were organized. Calm. Confident that winter itself was on their side. A radio crackled behind her. Not police frequencies. Private. She listened. Phase 3 holds. Let the snow do the rest. Mara shut the radio off slowly. Whatever had started with one body was about to spread. The blackout began at 6:18 p.m. Not everywhere. Just enough. 3 districts lost power within minutes of each other. Heating systems failed. Traffic lights died. Sirens echoed longer than usual because sound traveled differently in the cold. Panic didn't arrive loudly. It crept in, room by room, as temperatures dropped. Mara watched the city from the operations center, as maps flickered red. The pattern matched the markings she'd seen at the rail yard. Someone was testing control. Not chaos, pressure. Emergency services were stretched thin. Roads iced over faster than plows could reach them. Calls came in faster than they could be logged. And beneath it all, a quiet certainty settled in Mara's chest. This was intentional escalation. She traced permits tied to the affected infrastructure and found a name buried deep in seasonal contracts. Victor Klein. Municipal consultant. Temporary authority. Unlimited winter access. The kind of man who never appeared in headlines. When officers arrived at Klein's registered address, they found an empty apartment. Still warm. A kettle whistling itself dry on the stove. On the table, a single page torn from a planner. Winter teaches obedience. Outside, snow began falling harder. The city didn't know it yet, but something was tightening around it, slowly, patiently, like ice forming over deep water. The snowstorm arrived the way bad truths always do, without drama, without warning, simply overwhelming everything in its path. Detective Rowan Keller drove with both hands locked around the steering wheel, his knuckles pale beneath his gloves. The windshield wipers fought in steady, exhausted arcs, pushing aside thick layers of snow only for them to return seconds later. The road was barely visible now, not because it was gone, but because winter had decided to reclaim it. Trees leaned inward from both sides, their branches heavy, bowed, watching. The burner phone had died here. Its final signal pulsed once, weak and lonely, then vanished into the cold. Witness protection never liked rural winters. Too many blind spots. Too much silence. Too many places to disappear without force. Rowan slowed as the cabin emerged from the white, not built so much as endured. Dark wood, roofs sagging under ice, windows opaque with frost. No footprints leading away. No sign of recent struggle. Just one looping set of tire tracks behind the structure, pressed deep, then fading as if whoever arrived had planned not to leave quickly. He shut off the engine. Silence followed, not peace, silence with weight. Inside, the air was colder than expected. The heat source was failing. A generator coughed weakly somewhere in the back, its fuel nearly gone. The smell hit him immediately: metal, fuel, old paper, damp wood, and something else beneath it all, the stale, suffocating odor of decisions made too late. The cabin walls were alive with information. Maps covered nearly every surface, pinned, taped, layered atop one another. But these weren't hiking routes or forestry charts. They were infrastructure grids. Freight corridors. Winter road closures. Snowplow schedules. Emergency response delays calculated down to minutes. Rowan's stomach tightened. This wasn't a place to hide from winter. It was a place built to use it. On the central table lay the truth, arranged with unsettling care. Photographs of meetings taken from afar. Contracts stamped and signed. Environmental reports quietly amended. Surveillance stills of city officials entering buildings they claimed never to visit. A deputy chief. 2 council members. 3 private contractors. All linked by the same project. The North Line expansion. The avalanche that killed 6 workers last winter had been labeled unavoidable. A freak event. Nature's cruelty. But nature hadn't signed those permits. Rowan flipped through a folder and felt the anger settle deeper, colder. Warning memos ignored. Load limits exceeded. Temperature fluctuations deliberately misreported. Winter safety protocols overridden to keep schedules tight and profits cleaner. Someone had known. Several people had. And they had decided the mountain would take the blame. A sound broke the stillness. The crunch of snow underfoot. Slow. Deliberate. No attempt at stealth. Rowan drew his weapon just as the cabin door opened. Cold air rushed in, followed by a man who carried himself like he belonged everywhere. Snow clung to his coat and shoulders, melting slowly into dark stains. His expression was calm, measured, almost relieved. "Detective Keller," the man said evenly. "You found it." Rowan recognized him instantly. Grant Holloway. Infrastructure consultant. Public face of the North Line rebuild. The man who had stood at memorial podiums, voice solemn, eyes appropriately wet. The man newspapers had called the reason the city healed. "You shouldn't be here," Rowan said, keeping the gun trained. Grant smiled faintly. "Neither should you. That's the problem with winter. It exposes routes people forget still exist." Behind him, headlights flared through the snow. Then another pair. Then another. Vehicles arrived one by one, forming a slow ring of light around the cabin. No sirens. No panic. This wasn't an ambush. It was an appointment. "You didn't come to escape," Rowan said quietly. Grant stepped aside, letting the door close behind him. "No," he replied. "I came to finish what the storm started." Rowan realized then, this wasn't a trap meant to kill him. It was a gathering of ghosts who believed winter had already forgiven them. The storm did not end in violence. It ended in confession. Inside the cabin, voices rose and fell, overlapping, colliding, retreating. Rowan let the recorder run, its small red light blinking steadily, as men who had built careers on silence began to speak. Not all at once. Not bravely. But inevitably. Grant Holloway spoke first. Not defensively, but carefully, like a man explaining whether patterns he believed no one could change. "The deadlines were impossible," he said. "Winter construction always is. You either accept losses, or you don't build." Rowan didn't interrupt. Others filled in the cracks. Contractors admitted corners were cut. Inspectors admitted reports were altered. A councilman admitted funding was contingent on silence. Each voice tried to shrink responsibility, pass it sideways, bury it beneath shared guilt. No one claimed they wanted anyone to die. That didn't matter. Rowan learned the truth about the witness. Not kidnapped, not murdered, but isolated, threatened, buried under legal pressure in cold roads until fear did what violence didn't need to. Winter had been the weapon. Distance the blade. When the sirens finally came, they sounded strange against the storm. Too loud, too human. Police vehicles emerged through the snow like bruises in white skin. Officers moved carefully, weapons low, breath fogging. No one ran. No one resisted. Grant Holloway didn't look angry as the cuffs closed around his wrists. He looked tired. At dawn, the storm weakened. Snow fell softer now, like an apology that came too late. News broke fast. Warehouses searched. Documents seized. Names fell from public favor with astonishing speed. By noon, the city knew the avalanche hadn't been an accident. By evening, it knew winter had been blamed for human choices. Weeks later, Rowan stood alone at the memorial site. 6 names carved into stone. Fresh snow settling gently into the letters, not hiding them, outlining them. He didn't brush it away. Some truths deserve to stay cold long enough to be seen clearly. Winter hadn't hidden a crime. It had waited.